when you go into heart surgery, no matter how good your odds are, you think you're going to die. There's no other way to say it. That's the reality, Cameron. But I didn't. And I'm alive. And my surgery was 3.5 years ago. And I have a beautiful son and a great wife and an amazing business. And who cares if you lose 25% of revenue in a month, because you're going to make it back. And so it just helped me recognize, to understand how to deal with problems that most of the time you think the problem is going to be this big. But then in retrospect, in hindsight, in reviewing the game film, as I call it, the problem is really this big. And very, very rarely are problems this big.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through accounting, tax strategy, and CFO services. Now, y'all, it's season 2. I told you I had to go out here and get some big dogs. I had to put my feelers out. I had to tap into my network, tell me like who's doing this at a high level, like who can I bring on here that can give the audience some value and just encourage them along their journey with their story. And I don't even know how this ended up working. I don't even remember how we met, because like we met before we met. But anyway, this guy has been doing it for a while. He's speaking all over the place. He mentors typically at least 50 agencies, if not more, because, you know, he stay connected to them. I know he has an excellent team of different specialists. So we had to get Mr. POD in the building himself. Alex Shalinsky is here.
Cameron, thank you for having me, bro. We actually met at the high level event. That's how we met 2 years ago.
I couldn't remember, because I was like, did we meet there or did we meet before that? And then at the high level event, we just actually saw each other in person.
Yeah, we had a mutual client that connected us, and then we met in person at the event.
Basketball. Okay, yeah. So yeah, last year when I went to the Go High Level event, so this is fall of 23, I think it was. Yeah.
Right.
We met and somehow we just made it work. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. Tell the people name of the company, how long you've been doing it, and who you help.
Yeah, my name is Alex Shalinsky. I run Prospecting on Demand, also known as Sky Social Media, which was originally the agency name. And then I did a DBA for the coaching and mentorship program and community we built called Prospecting on Demand. Started the agency in 2010 when I was a freshman in college with my wife. Did that as a side hustle business for about 5 years. Finished college and then kind of worked on the agency for 12 to 18 months with a coach. Expanded that greatly, handed most of it off. And then about a year after that, roughly 2016 time, I started taking on one-on-one clients, got my own coach to help me build a coaching program. And then 2017 to 2018, started building out what POD is as it is today. And we've scaled and grown quite significantly since then. Really proud to still be in this space and supporting so many agencies all these years later. It's crazy how fast time goes, and that it's already 2024. But yeah, that's the brief version of it.
All right, that's the brief version. But you gotta tell them, because you like, oh, I just coach a couple of people and it's grown. Like, we gotta backtrack. You gotta tell them the story of how like you went from I'm doing this at a high level with the law firms into like, how do you get into? Because okay, I'm coaching one person. That's one thing. But you're not coaching one person, because I know how many people you coach. Yeah. You got to tell them, how was that transition? Like, what was that like to, even from the mental perspective, to go from I just have to worry about me and us performing at a high level to now tying in my success with some of these other people that we coach?
Yeah, I mean, to be very transparent, working with the attorneys was a challenge for me as a human being. I come from like community, like a religious background that was like very soaked into community and like being part of a family that's big on community and inviting people into your home and having events. And working in the legal industry and doing marketing for attorneys did not really lend to that. That industry is very much like, what have you done for me lately? And then what's next? So you get a great case and it's like, there's no celebration, there's no popping bottles, there's no appreciation. I'm being hyperbolic here, but in a general sense, not much. It's just like, okay, get to the next one right away. And I'm not really like that kind of like churn type of model. I'm not really like that hustle mode type person. So I had to switch over into working with entrepreneurs because I had built a really successful agency, and I was doing a one-to-one for a while. But the max capacity of doing that was maybe like 5 people, and it was completely exhausting and draining. Like pouring yourself into someone for hour to 90 minutes and doing that 3 or even 4 times a day, and then expecting that you can come home, to your wife and to yourself and have anything left is just outrageous. The coach that I worked with, his name was Austin, really great coach, helped me understand how to develop a group coaching program because I was worried for a long time about handing any of the service off because of one, ego, but also two, like the desired result I wanted was outside of my control. And that was something I was good at handing off in the attorney industry, but not great in the coaching product. So it took a while to build that confidence to allow a team to actually step in. Now we have 12 coaches in prospecting on demand, servicing 50 agencies at a time. But that turnover was really, really hard. And still today, I would admit comfortably that I'm in many ways the bottleneck of POD. What I've done is set up my team in order to ensure that I can't be the bottleneck, meaning the mission and the goal of the company to support our clients is significantly greater than just me as an individual. And so they hold me accountable to also making sure, no, Alex, you're not going to do that call, or no, you're not going to take that step or make that training. So-and-so is going to do it, or so-and-so is going to do it. And that's been a very interesting change over the last particularly 2.5, 3 years since I had open heart surgery and had a child, which I know is just like a fun little nugget to throw in there. But in general, that was kind of the trajectory of the business.
Okay, now you said a lot of stuff right there. Shout out to the child. Shout out to y'all. Would have to hear his story. He can tell that, but we're not gonna hit y'all with the tear jerkers right now. I mean, unless he bring it up on his own. Because I heard the story, and my wife was like, "Damn, that was so deep." And I was like, "Yeah, that was real." But anyway, okay, let's go back to what you said. So now you said you have 12 different coaches.
Yeah.
And just to give y'all a little insight, so what I know about POD is he has coaches in every area. So one of the things that I was I'm not going to say I was amazed with where I was like, okay, he has so many different people helping in different areas. So kind of go into more of the mindset of like, hey, I got this person for sales. I got this person for ads. I got this person for mindset. I got this person for tech. Like, how, A, did you find all these different people? B, I think you told me that like these people still all run their own companies.
Yeah.
And then C, you just kind of hinted at like me being okay with like letting them do their thing without stepping into their arena of genius. Like walk us
Yeah.
through those because I think a lot of people they can get to that 300, 400, maybe 500 range, but then they start struggling because I want to do this and I want to keep
Yeah.
that and I can't trust anybody to do
Yeah.
it as well. So speaking to that for us.
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's like having clarity of what I want in the first place, right? I think money motivation is probably the most common motivation for any entrepreneur, but most people don't actually identify like what is enough, like what is enough money. There's a lot of people who make a ton of money, but are really dissatisfied with the amount of work they put in, the fulfillment or lack thereof that they get, the stress and anxiety as a byproduct of that, the lack of time they're spending with their families. A lot of people struggle with this greatly. I actually wrote a book about it called The Anti-Hustler's Handbook, which you can go to antihustlehandbook.com and grab a copy. The concept of this model for me was really defining what I really wanted. And so the first step was understanding I really wanted a community. I really wanted to have fun. I really wanted to make things not just business, but also personal. I wanted to help impact entrepreneurs to utilize their best asset, which is agency. And I don't mean like marketing agency. I mean like agency as the ability to choose what you want, to form and build the life you want because you don't have a boss telling you what to do. The biggest wake up call for most entrepreneurs is when they're dissatisfied with something in their life or in their business, there's no one to blame. right? There's no one to blame because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are creating this entire framework for themselves. And so when I found myself frustrated with the attorney model, I was able to change. When I found myself exhausted from doing one-to-one coaching, I was able to change. When I found myself that I wasn't making enough money because I was doing one-to-one, I was able to change. And so that was the first step, understanding financially what did I need and what did I want, both for immediate security and ensuring that I was setting up myself for the future. And then also for existential things that I wanted, or additional, things that I wanted for my life that might have been material or didn't actually matter. Once I had those things kind of locked in, I was comfortable staying at that rate based off of being in the place that I wanted to be in. Not like, oh, I'm not going to grow, or, oh, I'm not going to challenge myself. All of those things are still really important to me. It's just I felt comfortable understanding what was enough in a concept for me, which I think is very hard for most entrepreneurs. So I think that was the first step. The second step in terms of like allowing other people to coach, and how did we make that happen, and how did we hire them, how do they do it with their own job, it really just comes down to like the mantra that I have about my business in and of itself. First of all, prospecting on demand in and of itself is a non-scalable company because we are chose to be boutique, right? We choose to be boutique by working with no more than 50 agencies, so we can pour into those people, make a real difference for them, help them and their team in a way that no one else can provide, simply due to the amount of other people they have in the program. We don't churn through clients as a client acquisition company. We focus on retention as a client success company. And more than half of our client roster has worked with us for over 2 years, which is very rare in the coaching space. The coaching space and my competitors often have products that are like 3, 6, 9, or 12 months, and their retention rate is very low. We have more than a 50% retention rate, meaning people that finish the 6-month period, they agree to another 6 months. And very often they are at payment 24 or payment 36 and beyond, which of course we're extremely grateful for. And we've identified by doing that, by instead of going in each inch deep and mile wide, we go an inch wide and a mile deep. And that model to us has been significantly more valuable and profitable, not just financially, but also emotionally and personally. As you know, Cameron, you and your wife came to my house for an event. Like, we invited you into our home where our child lives, where we, do our business, but we did it because that is important to us. And it's a core value of ours to invite people into our home and to create a sense of community and to have a good time. And you actually took the stage for a minute and did a great job sharing your expertise. And I thought that was awesome. The way that we built this was so that we can actually really pour into people. And the reality of hiring other coaches was just based off of, I cannot do this all by myself. I'm not skilled at everything. I don't have the time to do everything. And I want to make sure that, I could prop up other amazing people that are great coaches, are great at what they do, and support them. So the last part of that question was like, how do they do that when they have another job? We have 5 employees at POD. Myself, my wife, who's my co-founder, and our productivity coach, Shira. Jennifer Wright, who's our operations director and accountability coach. Jody, who is our accountability coach. And Brian, my business partner and head coach and head of marketing at Prospecting on Demand. Everyone else on our team are contractors, 1099s. The reason being is they all have their own jobs, because what we get to do is leverage them as boots on the ground support. So the person that's helping you with scaling in your agency currently runs an $100,000 a month agency with very good profit margins, where she has to work, less than 10 hours a week or so. In that same vein, it's the same concept as the person who's, helping with your Google ads. They run a Google agency that does over $2 million a month in Google ad spend. So that model has helped us ensure that we have the most up-to-date, cutting-edge information as best we can, while having very limited churn. We have certainly churned coaches in the past, of course, just based off their scalability and their goals, but all in good faith, all in good standing, because at the end of the day, the mission of the company and community is stronger than any individual person, including myself.
Okay, there was a lot there. Let's go back. You talked about buy-in. And I think that's super important, because how do you get all of these different people at different stages of their agency journey? Like you just mentioned, all right, we got somebody who's running $100,000 a month agency. How do you get not only the coaches to buy in to say like, yeah, this is worth my time. I'm all for it. Like, let's do it. Whatever you need, I'm there. As well as then flipping it to the client and getting them to say like, this is different from other masterminds that I'm in or other types of groups and that because I've seen plenty, I've been in plenty. I am here to admit POD is very different than the normal meet once a week or every other week on Zoom type. So they are doing things different. So like speaking of that, and how do you create that buy-in for your team and for clients?
So for the team, it comes down to a mantra that we have. It's an acronym that we created called the CHAMP model, which is being caring, helpful, available, motivating, and proactive. Every person on the team has to follow through with these 5 tenets of our product because we believe in each of these models so significantly that creates an environment of buy-in, and everyone has the same mission and goal, which is truly helping people. When you help anyone in life or in business, whatever the result of that help is, whether it's financial, emotional, physical, material, all of them together, or some amount, whether it's you've helped them 20% or 100%, the feeling of fulfillment based off of gratitude from someone else is no question the best way to fill your cup, right? Helping someone genuinely is great, regardless of whether or not there's a financial incentive to do so, as long as you did it with the appropriate intention. And so our intentions are always set with the CHAMP model. I think that is really how we get our team to be on the same page, to support appropriately and make sure that our goals are always aligned. And that includes accountability from everyone on the coaching staff, including me. I'm big on the Knights of the Round Table approach. I try not to say that I'm better than anyone else or that I'm sanctimonious. Sometimes I certainly am doing that. Sometimes I am too egotistical simply because I'm a human being. But in a general sense, I'm always working towards having the appropriate intention of, this is a circle, everyone's opinion matters, etc. Even with maybe it seems like, it's a fake reality because at the end of the day, Alex gets final say, which I understand. But in general, I try to cultivate that environment where everyone's opinion matters. Every feedback matters, all accountability matters, and I'm not beyond reproach. So that's for my team. On the client side, it's very different, and very important to understand like how we operate in our sales process. So first of all, we don't have any salespeople in the company because of the size of the company and how we operate. I do sales and Brian does sales. That's it. Those are the only 2 people, to make sure that anyone that's coming into our community fits our energy, fits our community vibe, has the right intentions appropriately, is not an asshole, is a big one, and ultimately is really interested in getting supported. Not expecting some done for you model. There's a lot of stuff out there like promising done for you models, and just like the math doesn't make any sense. There's no way you're going to pay someone $10,000 and they're going to give you a business that's recurring $20,000 in revenue. There's no math that makes sense on that, and yet some people still buy that. I don't get it. The model that we do is essentially what I call the real investment close. It's the concept of if you go into a gym, okay, and you pay the gym for a year of membership up front. Say it's $200 a month, so it's $2,400 a year, okay? You go there, you pay them, and you're like, okay, I'm ready. Give me abs. Do it. I paid. Nothing's going to happen, right? You're not going to get abs, right? The work has to be done. You have to put in the work consistently every single day. And so we focus less on the investment of prospecting on demand, right? It's a $3,000 a month investment. We have nothing to hide from that. The value that we provide is insurmountable. It's the best in the space. And ultimately our proof, speaks for itself. But in a general sense, the financial investment for companies doing $20,000 or $25,000, which is really our bread and butter recurring, that's an easy investment. The real investment is the time, our most valuable asset we have, investing that time, investing that energy, investing the opportunity of that time, right? Because you could be spending it elsewhere, and your team to ensure that you're going to get the results by doing the things that we ask you to do, communicating with us on a day-by-day basis, holding accountable to the things we promise, because it's a symbiotic relationship. And so if people are not willing to do that work on the front end, meaning, oh, I'll pay you, but I won't do the work, we won't accept the money. Now, of course, once people actually get into the program, right, it's natural to be overwhelmed very easily. Like, how do I get into a new mentorship program? How do I not get overwhelmed? It's totally understandable. We try to take it in bite-sized chunks for every person because it's a custom game plan for every person based on where they're at. Some people need a salesperson right away. Other people need more calls right away. Other people need to, fix their agency. That's a Frankenstein business with a bunch of different niches. So each person has to have nuanced approach and support, and we take it at their pace, trying to put a little bit of pressure on, but not like to the point of like, oh, your back's against the wall model is just not how we operate. It creates a lot of stress and anxiety for no reason. We're not going to work with anyone for their last dollars. That's not our model. And so the way that we've cultivated is being very transparent about what's required to succeed. And for those that do it, they get the results. And for those that don't, they don't get the results. It just comes down to what your willingness is to succeed. I always say this, and I believe this wholeheartedly. We just help winners win faster, right? I don't like taking credit for we made this person a winner. I think that's totally irresponsible, completely untrue. We're the equipment at the gym. We're the dietitian that's telling you what to eat. We are the personal trainer telling you what to do, but we're not doing the diet. We're not running the miles. We are not, giving you, you're not utilizing the equipment because you made it, right? This is the work that you're putting in. If you put that work in and you care about this and want the result, it's going to happen for you. And I think that's how we've cultivated the environment of, immense success.
Y'all, there was a lot right there. Okay. To try to attempt to summarize that, we care about people deeply enough to hold them accountable and bring out what we know is already there. We're not going to sell you just to make a sale. Because he even told me that. He was like, I'm just telling you, if it's not going to work, I don't want your money. I was like, oh, all right. Okay. Okay. Y'all just need to go back and just listen to that whole clip. Just do that. Now, another thing you said, you talked about your partner. And I think this is super important because a lot of people are like, well, how do I pick the right partner? How do I know we're aligned? How do we stay in our own lanes and not step on each other's toes? And you speak very highly of Brian all the time. So you don't necessarily have to tell us how you met, but what made you say, I'm willing to split the money with this guy and build this with this person from the ground up? So for whatever your reason.
Yeah, no, I'm fully transparent. I have nothing to hide, honestly. At the end of the day, like transparency, in my opinion, is the bridge to connection. Vulnerability is the bridge to connection. Like social media is so curated in today's day and age. Like everyone wants to have a very particular image. And my image is just human being, which includes, positive, negatives, flaws, emotions, like all of that. So I don't really have any issues with transparency. I'm just a big proponent of being as transparent as possible, but also as tactful as possible. I think that's kind of the line that I try to model. People have expressed before, like honesty is honesty is a goodness, like essentially, but sometimes honesty can hurt people. So tactfulness, I think, is a really important kind of frame as well. In general, I met Brian in another mastermind we were part of called the Entrepreneur Alliance. That mastermind did monthly spotlight sessions, just like we do in Prospecting on Demand. And so at it just so happened that I think we had back-to-back months where I did my one call close training. This is way back. This is like 2017. So it's like the beginning of my training career. Did a training for it. There was probably like 250 people in the mastermind at that point. Got a lot of love for that, which was really cool because I was still really early in kind of formulating my process, and I'm like infinitely better than I was then. And so that was very rewarding. One of those people that messaged me was Brian Downard, talking about it and saying, he runs a coaching program for, helping people use LinkedIn to get clients. And, he loved the training. It helped him with sales. And, he's doing the training next month, would love for me to jump on. So I jumped on. I loved his energy. I loved, his transparency, the way he was communicating. It just felt very right. And so we had a conversation about, I needed to bring on a coach based off of the coaching I was getting. And I didn't feel confident in knowing who that was because I didn't know anyone that I knew personally in my community. And I'd never worked with anyone online really outside of my clients. And so I asked him if he would be open to doing that because perhaps instead of us creating separate programs, like his was a LinkedIn thing, mine was an agency growth thing. Mostly at that time was really focused on sales, but in a general sense, how can we work together? And just felt natural. He could get people book calls. I could help them close deals. And it just felt like that was a no-brainer. And so we believed together that we could go farther, faster, and make more impact together than we could individually. And I think it's paid off very handsomely financially and fulfillment-wise for us. We've run, I think, like 16 or 17 events, something of that nature. I'm not exactly sure the exact number, but, I remember when we were planning for our first big event in March of 2020, the concept was very daunting to us, but also very exciting. And then finishing that event and realizing like, wow, we just did that. Like we just had 150 people or 130 people out in Tampa, and like we crushed it, and we sold 25 memberships to our program, which was brand new at the time. And we did it again and again. Obviously, COVID withheld us a little bit. We did some virtual ones, but we ended up doing, like 6, 7, 8 events since then, including a massive one. Last year, we did 150 people, which was our most ever. And I think, sometimes we just look back, like, can you believe that this all started off with like just a Facebook message of, doing some coaching for LinkedIn. And now here we are. It's pretty amazing. So that was the model that we came up with. And it's just been really beneficial for both of us, our families, and our clients as well.
There you go. And I think it's awesome that you said that, because since I became a business owner, I've met people all over the world just off one DM, one message, or one post. So I think that was great. Okay, tell us stuff. So you told us how you met and why. Now tell us, in picking a partner, because I'm sure y'all have been doing this together for over 4 or 5 years at this point.
2018.
What are some of the things that you've noticed, like, this is why I picked you as a partner? Because I think, again, some people struggle with that. Like, I don't know who to trust, or what should I be looking for? What qualities or characteristics? Or
Yeah.
I'm growing it, I'm willing to give up some equity, but I still need to pick the right person. So
Yeah.
what would be your advice based on your experience and how to pick that perfect partner, number 2, CEO, whatever?
I feel like it's probably a similar answer to like, when's the right time to have a kid, right? I think anyone that that's a parent, which I know obviously you are, I am, Brian is. I don't know how many listeners are, but maybe you have a kid, maybe you want to have a kid. But if you're on either side of the fence, you'll get the exact concept, right? If you don't have a kid yet, you're waiting for the perfect time. If you have a kid, then the exact mantra and quote is, there is no perfect time, right? So we spoke about my heart surgery for a second. Like during COVID, I had to wait 10 months because of the pandemic to have my surgery. And in between that time, Shira, my wife, got pregnant. Kind of accidentally. It just happened, right? And that was not like we hadn't planned that. It just happened, right? And it's the best thing in the whole world. Like Ellie is 3 years old now. He's the greatest thing in my whole life. There's nothing I could love more than him. But in a general sense, right? It's like I didn't plan that. And so I think, you made a comment about like, who do I trust? Inherently, the way that I was raised is that we're all part of the same tribe, like the human being tribe, and just having more grace for people in a general sense, like because you have no idea what someone is going through, what challenges they're dealing with, and the reality is everyone is dealing with some level of challenges. Some people manage it really well, other people really struggle with it, and so to me, like it's just so much easier to give grace. I don't know why it tends to feel like in at least social media, right, that the impact is very consistently like negative, steered towards like negative media, negative thoughts or feelings, like jealousy, frustration about someone else's success. And of course, I've fallen into that too. Like I'm not being sanctimonious. Of course, I felt those ways, but I just find it so much better. Like a mutual friend of ours, one of our clients, Brett, he talks about this concept of loving people when they least deserve it and least expect it. And I love that concept. I think the idea of just like being more graceful, providing more love to other people, even in the face of challenges, is really great because I think more love would be better for everyone. So, like, I'm a big words of affirmations person. I like complimenting people on what they're wearing or how they're doing or telling them I'm proud of them. I like doing that. I also like hearing that. It's just something that really is impactful to me. So, when it comes down to trust, like, inherently, I just trust everyone. Is that naive? Of course. Have I been burned by that? Absolutely. But in comparison, when you do a T chart of, okay, Alex's trust as a whole in his life and business and career, like in terms of win journals versus, things that happen negatively because of that, the wins so far outweigh the negative things. And I've been robbed before because I've trusted someone. So it's like, in general, I'm a big just truster. Like I'm down to trust first and then learn from that. I think a lot of people are do it the alternative way, which is completely fine. It's like you have to earn my trust, you have to earn my respect, which I think is okay. It's totally okay. It's just how I was raised, how I like to portray like myself, how I like, how I want my son to be. And ultimately, you're just understanding like the nuance of where to protect yourself. So in business, I think the two main mantras that I would have is you're never going to know who's the right partner, who's the right person to work with. And you also don't have to just have a boilerplate conversation like it's 50-50 automatically, or it's whatever. Like you can do no equity, you can do profit sharing, you could do whatever you want, right? Like you have the agency and capability to do that. You can date for a little bit and then get married eventually. Like that's the concept. But I just prefer the model of understanding how decision making works. And I think this is very valuable in a general sense, right? And this comes down to sales psychology, but in decision making in a general sense. Decision making in general is very hard for pretty much 99% of people. It's significantly harder and creates more anchors when there's more on the line, meaning there's time responsibility like urgency, there's financial responsibility meaning investment, and there's time investment that you have to put in, not just like a deadline, right? And when you have those additional anchors on top of that, some other anchors like emotional anchors, etc., it creates a very challenging decision-making process where we waffle, right? And that's why people do like decision-making trees of pros and cons and that kind of stuff. But it just becomes very hard to do it. In very small examples, it's like, why do people like look at Netflix for 40 minutes before deciding what to watch? Even though there is no financial responsibility, there is no time commitment other than watching the show or movie, and there's no urgency on the deadline, why do we still have a hard time with that, right? Versus with another like concept would be where to go to eat. And then the last one would be what partner to have, what mentorship program to go be a part of, what investment do I make for sponsorship for an event, as an example, right? When you consider those and realize like decision making is hard in general, the way that I like to think about it is you can never make a wrong decision. Now, when I say that, I slow down for a second and I give that pause because people are like, what do you mean? Of course I
Yeah,
can make a
I
wrong
was
decision.
like, wait, what?
So I'll give you an example. I'm a huge football fan, massive Miami Dolphins fan, and you might make a joke right now. Well, you made a wrong decision by being a Dolphins fan. And to that I say, that's not nice. I love the Dolphins. Don't be mean. Joking aside. Joking aside, though,
Okay, okay.
there's a concept called Monday morning quarterback, right? In football. The concept is basically like reviewing game film from the quarterback, and the quarterback threw an interception. And the incredible analyst insight is you shouldn't have thrown that interception. And it's like, bravo, bravo. You get a job at ESPN. You're so smart. You're amazing. And I love this concept in life and in business because the reality is you can only make a bad decision upon reviewing the film, upon the outcome, upon the retrospective result, right? In hindsight, which is why people call it a hindsight is 2020. No one purposely sabotages themselves. And again, when I say no one and you say absolutes, like there's really no such thing as absolutes. Of course, some people do, like for whatever reason it is. It's not really the point of the show. In a general sense, the large majority of human beings don't make any decisions on purpose to sabotage themselves or on purpose to make the wrong decision. No one goes into a sponsorship idea and be like, okay, this is 20K. I'm going to make this 20K investment and I'm definitely not going to make my money back. No one does that, obviously, right? But you go in with
That's
fear and you make a 20K investment, then the outcome comes out and you didn't make your money back. Well, that was a bad decision. No, it wasn't. That's a bad decision by retrospect in reviewing. That's the same concept of saying you shouldn't have thrown that interception. Well, okay, maybe if you looked at the coverage and you see it was two high shell safeties and there's a middle linebacker in the middle of the field, maybe if you change the coverage and call play for the next time, this is the same concept. So the idea for people is take the step, right? The only wrong decision is indecision because indecision guarantees that you can't get any outcome. We don't control the outcomes the majority of times we make decisions, the majority of times, right? Sometimes we get the outcome, but most of the time it's just the action, meaning the decision to do this thing and then whatever outcome it is. When you get the outcome, you just review the outcome and whatever that outcome was, you use that to optimize for better decision making moving forward. And so, for example, if you make a decision to work with a potential partner, right, and you do a date and you do this thing and it totally blows up in your face in 3 months, well, that doesn't mean you made a bad decision. It just means we have to identify what went wrong after a decision was made so you can make a better decision the next time. I love that model of thinking. It helps me feel more comfortable with big decisions I'm making because most of the time the stakes are a lot lower than you think they are. And it makes it just a lot easier to feel comfortable moving forward. And so I try to be a really good decision maker. Am I a really good decision maker? Probably not, honestly. Probably not. I still struggle with indecision, and but I think understanding the framework helps me be better at being a bad decision maker. That's, I think, the best way I could say it.
That's good because I had that situation happen to me, and I would have qualified it as a bad decision because, like you said, I had to pick some. Well, person kind of sought me out, and they had this great. Oh, Cameron, you're young. I'm older. You're a guy. I'm a lady. You're black. I'm white. This should work perfectly. Like we can get everybody. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Sure. And like you said, I think I made sure to say, like, let's try this for 6 months because we never worked together. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't be. And then at the end of 6 months, we can decide how we want to do
Right.
everything. And to your point, it didn't work out. But in hindsight, like you said, I was like, you know what? Was that the best decision? Probably not because it didn't work out. But had it worked out,
Would have
I
been a
would have
great
been up there
decision.
like, oh,
Yeah.
man, I took a leap of faith and it worked. And oh, so that's a very good point. I never
I
thought.
think the interim decision concept is really valuable. Like I like think of it similar to like an appetizer in a buffet. It's like you don't have to get the main course with every decision you make. If you can get some appetizers
But
in
why
first,
do we
and
do that though? Because I feel
become
like everybody thinks every single, especially once you become a business owner, and you let's just say after you've hit 6 figures, so you making 5 figures a month, you feel like everything. Like if I hire a person, that's important. If I don't go make sales this week, that's important. If I don't take a break and rest, that like everything is at a 9 or a 10. When to your point, you're like, that's probably like a 4. That's
Yeah,
probably a
I
two.
think I resonate extremely strongly with the concept of everything feeling urgent and important in a 9 out of 10. I'll give you a quick example from one of my coaches, Dr. Willie Madaway, who works with us in POD. He's incredible. I mean, he really is. Cameron, he does the calls on Mondays. If you haven't been on there, he's just the best. So I've dealt with anxiety and stress my whole life. It got substantially worse probably 2 years before my surgery based off of the business growing substantially. POD has grown essentially 20% year over year for the last like 6 years. Then I had surgery and had a baby, which obviously inherently creates significantly more anxiety and stress. COVID, of course. And so I've been working really hard through therapy, counseling, coaching to lower the stakes on things in a general sense. And based off of doing a lot of auditing of game film, as we were referencing, it really benefits a lot to realize certain situations which you graded 9 or 10 at that moment. Then something happens 6 months later that you graded 9 or 10, but you retrospectively recall that 9 of 10 that you had before wasn't important. Like it was like a 2 in retrospect. So now you're redefining and recalculating for yourself in real time how it's going. And I'm getting better at it, like significantly better at it. I wrote a book for it, the Anti-Source Handbook, not just for people, but for me too, to remember these insights. But Willie Madaway says something great to me. In December, we had a probably like a 25% drop of revenue in POD. We lost some legacy clients that we had for a long time, and we lost some clients from an event that we ran where we did a special offer. Everything was copacetic in terms of like their experience was solid and good. It was just like they'd squeezed the juice out, and there wasn't really anything we could do. The concept that my team members were saying was like, hey, if someone graduates, high school, no one's being upset that they didn't stay back for a year. But I felt like that was kind of like this model of like trying to do mental gymnastics for we could have saved them, we could have retained them. And so I messaged William, I remember, and I said, this is the worst case scenario, like making it a 10 out of 10 process, right? His response back to me was extremely grounding and very beneficial. And I think it's really beneficial for anyone listening to this pod, because by all matters of people that follow me online that just like look at me or think of who I am, like I am stereotypically successful, like financially successful, personally successful, got through heart surgery. I have a wife that I met in high school. I have a beautiful, healthy son. I have a home. I have a beautiful business. I have a great community. I have awesome team members. I have all my family. Both my parents are alive. All of these things I am unbelievably grateful for. But yet, many times you don't feel that way. Like the person themselves don't feel that way. And so I sent this to William Madaway. I said, William, this is the worst case scenario. And he sent back that I thought the worst case scenario was you passing away from heart surgery. I thought the worst case scenario was not meeting your son. I thought the worst case scenario was Shira being left a widow. And when he sent me that text, what he was doing was redefining and re-strategizing for me. What does actually matters to you, Alex? Because he had the same confidence that I knew I had. I just was emotionally withheld from having this confidence at that moment, which is the confidence I have, which now I have 3 months later, which is we'll make all that money back. We'll be fine. And we have, and we're fine, right? Because again, it was a 10 out of 10 there. Now it's a 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. What he was doing was talking about the things that really actually matter to me. And the reality is, bluntly, when you go into heart surgery, no matter how good your odds are, you think you're going to die. There's no other way to say it. That's the reality, Cameron. But I didn't. And I'm alive. And my surgery was 3.5 years ago. And I have a beautiful son and a great wife and an amazing business. And who cares if you lose 25% of revenue in a month, because you're going to make it back. And so it just helped me recognize, to understand how to deal with problems that most of the time you think the problem is going to be this big. But then in retrospect, in hindsight, in reviewing the game film, as I call it, the problem's really this big. And very, very rarely are problems this big. Usually those problems are the health and wellness of the people you care about most. And if you have not dealt with that yet, thank God. Seriously, regardless of whether you're religious or not, just thank whoever for that incredible gift, right? Because it is a gift. Because as soon as that happens, which hopefully it never does, but the reality is we all die. So it's going to happen at some point, right? As soon as that happens, every other thing you realize is so much more minuscule than you made out to be. And that's why I try to walk every day with more grace for myself on understanding what really matters. Do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. Am I saying it in a sanctimonious way on this podcast? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this is me being, again, transparent and vulnerable. But I can say confidently, Cameron, man to man on this podcast, recorded or not, straight up, bro, I've made so much progress just in the last year. Significant amount of progress. Writing that book was hugely imposter syndrome for me, but just doing a lot of game film watching, I've just made a lot of progress on problems. And so when problems occur now, what used to be an 8 out of 10 response, most of the time is like 4 or 5 out of 10. And that is a massive, massive win. Massive. So big. And for anyone out there listening to this, seriously, and I mean this, if you're struggling with it, please message me. I will happily help you. You don't have to pay me anything. I will just be an ear to lean on. But just remember, the problems that you've had them probably before. And you thought at that point that those were the biggest deals and problems ever. And yet you were fine. And so if you can just have the confidence that you are a problem solver, a puzzle solution solver, that you can get through any obstacles because you've done it prior, right? It will really give you so much more confidence moving forward and make your life a lot better. And that's really what I want for everyone I work with and everyone I speak to.
That was good. All right. We're coming close to the end of our time. Let's do rapid fire so we can try to get a bunch of good, solid answers.
Absolutely.
And this will probably produce some great clips. All right.
Sure.
Here you go. Tell us things you have learned in working with your spouse in the business.
Wow. Things I have learned in working with the spouse in business. Communication is number one priority. Drawing lines in the sand of communication timelines of when we're talking family versus business. It's really hard for me to vacillate between both of those without having hard lines in the sand. And 3, understanding boundaries, which is kind of all the same answer, but in a general sense, the communication, boundaries, and lines in the sand for when you're communicating about business versus personal life.
You have worked with them. What is the difference between the agency who's making 100,000 or more per month versus the one who isn't? And let's just say, for this example, they've both been working 5 years, but client 1, he's making like 30, 35 grand a month. Client 2's making 105,000 a month. What is the main difference you've seen as the coach to the superstars that separates them from each other?
Yeah, I'll just preface really quick that I think a lot of people in this type of environment or model wants to be like, oh, one of the people had certain variable luck and the other one had certain variable like disluck or unluck or whatever you want to say. And I think to some degrees that's like relatively true. Like, with my agency growing it, like I grew up in a Jewish community. And so from my temple, I ended up getting like 10 attorney clients right off the rip. And some people can't do that. And that made me think that building business was easy, but it's not really at all. So I think that's one. So like there are certain factors, of course, outside of control. Let's talk about within control. Like what's the differentiating factor? Meaning everything that outcome they got was from something they did. I would say it's really like two main specific things. Number one would be advertising. Investing in advertising is just a really critical thing to get to a 6-figure a month rate, because every other model of acquisition is just significantly harder to scale. The majority of agencies doing 6 figures or plus per month are running significant number of money on ads. And when I say significant, I mean like $10,000 or more per month. So that's a consideration. The second thing would be Dream 100, like franchises. I did a podcast series last year where I interviewed 7 agencies doing over $250,000 a month. So significant size businesses. Every single one of them had a franchise partnership where they were getting a huge amount of clients from like a jujitsu company or a restaurant franchise company or insurance brokerage or whatever it may be, obviously at a discounted rate, but their cost per acquisition was so low, their margins were very lean, but ultimately it was a churn model, like a process model that was really easy to scale. That's a big one. Just a third one, just to give an insight that I think is a big differentiating factor, those who sponsor events. Showing up in person at events, especially for hard to get niches like doctors, attorneys, etc. Companies that do that consistently and make those investments of time and money have a huge advantage. So I would say those 3 things.
That's good. Top 3 things you need to be doing to make your first 7-figure year.
Whoa. Okay. First 7-figure top 3 things. Stop saying yes to everything. I think the concept is like, can I compile enough money from all of the opportunities to get enough? And I just don't think that like that's an effective rate to do so. Right. So if you consider how to get to $1 million. Basically, it's like $84,000 a month, right? So if you consider you need to be making roughly $83,000 to $84,000 a month. What's the easiest, most efficient way for you to do that? Based off of your network, based off of the people based off of the market that you have some sort of opportunity with. To me, the easiest model is going to be having a product that's at least $2,000 a month. If you have a product at least $2,000 a month, you're looking at roughly 40-ish clients to get to that number. Ideally, it's $2,500 a month, because if you're there, you're looking at about 33 clients. A lot of people think that number of like 30 to 40 clients is very insurmountable. But the truth is, if you just bootstrapped it and went in person, to multiple vendors in your area, you could probably end up getting 10 to 15 clients right off the rip in a 3-month period pretty easily. So I'd say that's a big thing, like understanding the pricing of your product and where to go. Number 2, getting clarity of what you want to take home. Because a lot of people, they'll make 7 figures, but then they won't make a lot of money. We had a client 2 years ago who came into POD and he said, I did $1 million last year. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, what was your profit? He made $1 million. His company spent $920,000. So he made $80,000 on top of also having $60,000 salary. So, he made a decent amount of money, but nowhere near what the number that we're suggesting is. So I think that's really, really important not to get focused too much on vanity metrics unless you are very keen on like selling. Obviously selling, having higher revenue is really, really important, but most people don't have any interest of selling. So like it's much better to run a business $500,000 at 80% margin than $1 million at 10%, like just a lot better to do that. So I think that it would be second. It's like a supposition to just be like, I want to make $1 million. Like it's just a fake thing. Third, advertising. If you can afford it, investing in ads will move you a lot faster. If you can't, sponsorships would probably be the other thing. Like I would be investing into sponsorships, but if you can afford to invest in a sponsorship, which roughly will range from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on the industry, and you're going to do that 3 or 4 times a year, I would probably just take all of that money and put it into ads instead. Just a huge risk, of course. Like there's a big risk running ads if you don't know what you're doing. It's a very fast way to burn money, and Meta will happily take your money with no problem. So those are my thoughts.
I wish we could keep going, but he gotta go save the world, y'all. So, with that being said, there was a lot here. I mean, you talked about the importance of decisions and keeping them in the right perspective, picking the right partner, why it's important to go a mile deep and an inch wide versus a mile wide and an inch deep. You talked a little bit, which I wish we could have got into, about client retention and why that's more important. You talked about why it's important to you, but we may have to talk about in the future how you did it at such a high level. Just a ton of things. So you guys go back, watch this episode now. Tell the people, because of course there's a lot of agencies that watch this. If they're like, man, I like this guy. I see he got awards on the wall. He got a book, top level stuff here. How do they reach you? How do they get in contact? What if they want to join? Tell them all of that. This is your time for that.
Yeah, prospectingondemand.com, easiest place to find us. You can reach out to me there directly on the website. You can also find me on literally every social platform. If you message me on LinkedIn, I'll probably never answer you because I get 1,000 cold pitch DMs a day. But pretty much any other platform, if you message me on, I'll find it and I'll see it. And I'd be more than happy to chat.
All right. Now, and then tell them about the book. What if they want to buy the book? There may be a reader.
Antihustlehandbook.com, or go on Amazon and search Anti-Hustle. And yeah, I would love for you to check it out. I put a lot of work and effort into it. It's a great book, choose your own adventure opportunity to identify right now where hustle is affecting you most in your life and giving you exact tools and resources to take action to become less stressed, less anxious, and more confident moving forward.
All right, give a shout out to wifey, because I know she's gonna check this episode out.
Can't do it without Shirabella. Without her, none of this business would be possible. Appreciate you. Thank you for everything. I love you.
She's such a sweet lady. All right, y'all. I told y'all, season 2, we bringing the big guns out. This guy's doing it at a high level. He knows what it takes to get there. He's coaching people to get there consistently. He has the resources. He has the team. So some of you have talked to me about, like, what are some good masterminds? What are some good groups? I don't want the boring, just let me watch 70 videos that are an hour or hour and a half a piece. I want to be in a good community. I want to learn. I want to be challenged. I want that great experience. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the people to go check out. So y'all check this episode out, share it, like it, tag some people on it. If you're like, hey, this is some good, solid stuff right here, make sure you get it out to the people that need to hear it. But until next time, thank you guys for listening in to season 2. Take care of yourselves and stay safe. Peace.